So now, I'm going to introduce someone that's very special. Sarah LANGS. Perhaps, okay, let's get her over there. And I'll talk slowly. Perhaps you know Sarah by face or by name. She works for the MLB Network as a commentator, an analyst. She was a huge Mets fan, recently diagnosed with ALS. She's here with her boyfriend, Matt, to be with us tonight to share her story. I only met her tonight, but I can tell you that she is a very, very courageous woman.
Any of us who follow baseball closely, and I certainly fall into that category, we've known Sarah LANGS for a while. It's a very young woman. She made her mark already writing for MLB.com and as an analyst on the MLB Network, which is on pretty much 24/7 wherever I am, and also doing commentary as one of the first women to be an analyst on an actual live game. That's something that's happening these days, and Sarah has been part of it. And she had every reason to be looking forward to a very long and fruitful life and career, and then a curveball comes. When, Sarah, did you first begin to feel as if something was off or wrong?
I would say it was really at the end of the 2019 season. Everything is by season with me, I'm sure, as with you. And, I was a runner, and I began to notice that I was limping and nothing hurt. And that was kind of the sign. And ultimately, it had started prior to that. But really, early in 2020, right before the pandemic began, is when I realized I should probably be seen and figure out what was wrong. And initially, I went to an orthopedist thinking I had an ankle injury.
Both of your parents are doctors. Did that in any sense guide you toward what this might have been?
Not really, other than being told to go be seen by a doctor. But, my mother certainly was one who was pushing me. I mean, both of them were. But I think they saw maybe something was wrong. But for me, I really just was focused on the fact that I wasn't running as fast as I had been previously.
And I know you've continued to work. I saw you just this week several times on the Major League Baseball Network. Your love of baseball is well known. It jumps through the screen, it jumps off the page. So this hasn't, maybe it's slowed you in some ways, or you've had to make some accommodations, but it hasn't stopped you.
No, not at all. I mean, the number one thing that I told my bosses when I shared this diagnosis with them, and that I tried to tell the world when I did share this publicly, was I'm still me. I'm still here working until the last game ends every single night and doing absolutely as much as I can. And as you said, I have had to make some accommodations, but in certain ways, I have more of an excuse to stay home every day and watch every single game. So, there's other ways to see it as well, which I'm really grateful for.
We know a lot of people who really like baseball, and then there are some of us who love baseball. You really love it.
I do. I mean, I've always loved baseball. My parents are huge sports fans, and my mother's favorite sport kind of goes back and forth between baseball and football, but I think just throughout the years, it was all I watched was sports. Every kid grows up, they watch TV. I was the one saying, is SportsCenter on? Can I watch primetime? Can I watch baseball tonight? So most of the Disney Channel and Nickelodeon references go right over my head. But I was watching, every Mets game when I was little and just keeping up with all of that. And as an only child, it was almost like a companion, too.
You're a lifelong Met fan, but most of the kids where you went to school, you've got support here. You got support here. Most of the kids where you went to school were Yankee fans, and they gave it to you, huh?
They did. I'm not a fan anymore. I don't root now that I do what I do. And I truly have, every single player in the league is my favorite player. That's been said about me for a long time now. But growing up, I was a Mets fan. There were kids in third grade who teased me so badly that they were put on a list that they could not be in my class for the next few years. And I was an easy target because despite being the big sports fan, I wasn't the tomboy. So I was very prone to cry. So I would defend my team, but then I would also burst out crying. Yeah.
I read an article which I think Andrew Marchand wrote in the New York Post, and there was a passage where, as a little girl, your dad and you were walking down the street looking for some place to grab lunch, and he steers you toward a coffee shop, but then you see something in the window that makes you put on the brakes.
Yes, so my father shared this story with the world. Thanks, Daddy. Yes, so there was a kid in a Derek Jeter shirt or jersey or something, and I said, no, we can't go in there. There's a Jeter shirt in there. So, again, I'm not like that anymore, but, I do think that every single broadcaster, writer, everyone who works in this league and in sports who is now objective started that way in some way, shape, or form. And I think that's how you really generate the lasting connections with the sport.
Just a quick detour here, because you mentioned it. Fans being fans, which is short for fanatics, even when they're otherwise sophisticated, they think the broadcaster must have a rooting interest because I have a rooting interest. So you hear it from both teams, fans of both teams. They're hearing exactly the same words on exactly the same broadcast. Why does he hate the Yankees? Why does he hate Cleveland? I'm just rooting for a good game.
Absolutely. It's amazing. So you kind of alluded to, I work in numbers. That's a lot of what I do is sharing numbers. And on Twitter, I will get people responding to a number, a objective fact, and saying, this is Acuna disrespect, this is disrespect to Pete Alonso, when it is literally how many home runs guys are projected for this season. But you know what I think every time I see one of those things is, we wouldn't have jobs without those people. We need that passion, and that passion that people have for sports is what makes this an industry.
So before you became an objective reporter, what Met players were your favorites?
So my first favorite player was Mike Piazza because my first Mets game was Mike Piazza's first game as a Met. It was May 23rd, 1998 against the Brewers. I believe Al Leiter threw a complete game. So there was so much excitement around him, and I latched on to that immediately. And then I had the very seamless sort of transition to David Wright. As any Mets fan who has been around for this period of time knows, that was kind of the next big thing. But as I got older, and I really was proud of my baseball knowledge, I kind of wanted to be the fan with the atypical shirt at the game. So I became a really big Oliver Perez fan. I had a John Maine t-shirt. I was really, really a fan of those guys. And I enjoyed that because sometimes people would ask me questions about the shirt at the game, and they did not expect me to know what I was talking about. And you know what? I did. So.
I think there's some Met fans here who are having Oliver Perez flashbacks because it didn't always go so well in some big games for the left-hander. Yeah, sometimes he had problems finding the plate. Yeah. 2006, Game 7, right? Although the Mets lost to the Cardinals. No, it wasn't his fault. It wasn't his fault. So what memory, we'll break it in two parts. What memory as a fan sticks with you the most? And what memory, now that you're a professional covering baseball to this point in your career, resonates most?
I think as a fan, it might be 2006 Game 7. I was there with my mother and a family friend, and even though it did not go well, I left crying, of course, and didn't want to go to school the next day. It was amazing to be at a postseason game for my team. I'd been a bit too young in '99 and 2000. I watched the games, but we never would have gone. But in 2006, I got a chance to go to a postseason game, and being there and feeling the atmosphere was really, really incredible. And as for in my professional life, I mean, none of this is even believable to me. Sitting here talking to you, you knowing who I am, any of this is just.
Of course I knew who you were.
I mean, I really never could have even dreamed any of this, but certainly being part of the first all-women's broadcast was really, really cool. I got to work with Melanie Newman and Alana Rizzo, two women I had respected for a very long time, and getting to really meet them as peers was wonderful, and the attention it got, I mean, it should be something that happens every day that we don't have to draw attention to, but in the moment it wasn't, and being able to be part of that and spread that message and be that representative for some kid at home, that was really important to me.
You know, I worked with and knew, yeah. Many of the pioneers, Claire Smith, Leslie Visser, Hannah Storm. Now, I wouldn't say that we're where we need to be, but it's becoming more and more commonplace. I don't hear anybody say, why is a woman talking about this or that? If you know your stuff and you know your stuff, what's the problem?
I agree. I mean, I think the next step is being at that point where it does happen even more frequently, and there isn't a story every time. Like Ronnie Gajownik, I may have botched it slightly, but just got hired as the High A Hillsborough Hops manager. And the role of these stories, and that's amazing. She deserves that. That's the highest level we've seen a woman named to manage. But I hope 5 years from now we have women being hired and it's just another hiring. That it doesn't need all of that attention because we've made it that far.
And hey, Phil Cuzzy, there are women refs in the NBA, women officials in the NFL. What's up with MLB?
Well, I'm just happy that Sarah's here because as much as I knew that she hated Yankee fans, I heard she hated umpires even more. So I'm thrilled that she's here.
You know, one thing that's just universal. You said you couldn't go or didn't want to go to school the next day in 2006. It was such a great game. Andy Chavez made the wonderful catch in left field, but Adam Wainwright froze Carlos Beltran with that curveball with the tying and winning runs on base in the 9th inning. So, okay, calm down. 46 years earlier than that, I'm 8 years old. Bill Mazeroski hits a home run in the bottom of the 9th against the Yankees. All the World Series games were in the afternoon then. I refused to go to school, and my mother said, no, you have to go to school. And my father said, no, he'll remember the World Series longer than he'll remember whatever they're teaching in school. And my father was right. What he didn't realize was that it would be traumatic for me, and it was terribly traumatic. And I actually vowed at age 8, because the Yankees had lost the World Series, and my Mike Piazza, or David Wright, as some of you might know, is Mickey Mantle. So any kid who grew up in the 50s and 60s in New York loved Mickey Mantle. And this is the first Mickey Mantle card I got out of a pack of Topps bubblegum cards in 1958 when I was 6 years old. And so I said, Sarah, to my parents, because you know when you're 8, you have no sense of time, really. I said, I'm not going to speak, which for me even then was ridiculous to even assume. I'm not going to speak until opening day. And I lasted until breakfast the next morning. But that was a long time for me.
Oh my gosh, I mean, I can't believe you even made it that far. That's amazing. But I mean, it's just so universal, that feeling, and it's amazing. And what I love about baseball, all sports, but especially baseball, which takes up so much time, so many games, everything spanning the summer, is that we can have that exact same feeling 40-something years apart. and someone 40 plus years from now will feel the exact same way over some game.
Last thing, and this is poignant. When you first arrived at ESPN for your entry-level job there, you noticed a mural on the wall. You can take it from here.
Yeah, so my first day at ESPN, if you haven't been up to the campus, it is really a sports fan's dream. The walls have all sorts of sports memorabilia and other things. And I was sitting in the lobby of the building I would come to work in, Building 4, and they actually had a mural of Lou Gehrig's speech on the wall, the luckiest man speech. And I found when I spoke to Andrew Marchand that I had taken a photo, I thought I had, and it was dated July 27th, 2015, the day I started there. And I took that photo because it was amazing. I mean, again, it's a sportsman's paradise, and I thought it was so cool to be sitting here in a room where someone thought that was wallpaper worthy.
And so, in a sense, because you were both baseball people, and now you're linked in a different way, there's a connection to a man you've never met.
There is. There are actually a few connections. His streak ended on May 2nd that year. His final game was April 30th. The Yankees were off on May 1st. My birthday is May 2nd. And I remember coming across that multiple times and thinking, I mean, I love my birthday, what an interesting connection. And then after I received the diagnosis, I remembered that, and I just thought that was so eerie but interesting.
Your boyfriend, Matt, it's a natural match, I guess, because he does NBA research for ESPN. So you're both digging into the numbers and all the backstories, and he has been pretty close to heroic in helping you through this, right?
He's been Superman. I mean, I don't know how he does what he does. Everything I do for baseball, he does for basketball and for college football a bit as well. He is Doris Burke's man, he is Adrian Wojnarowski's person, and he is also helping take care of me and making my career still possible. So I couldn't do any of this without him.
Sarah Langs, everyone. We're so glad she could be with us here tonight.